Part 10 of the Bedrogfontein 4x4 route covers the final pull-up to the summit as well as the first 3 switchbacks of the northern descent. This is probably the most dramatic video of this series in terms of visual effect, and prospective drivers of this route should note that the actual driving is considerably more difficult than what the video displays. If you intend driving this route, we strongly recommend that you should first watch the orientation and overview video as well as all the preceding videos in the correct sequence. Each video contains unique information pertaining to safety, technical, historical and tourism. This final part of the ascent has much easier gradients, and other than the very stony track, is really nothing more than a grade 1. The Addo Elephant National Park stretches from Woody Cape in the south, moving northwards across the area originally known as Olifantsplaat and Vetmarkvlakte, across the original elephant enclosure and across the Inyati concession area, encompassing a large part of the Zierberg mountain range, then moving westwards and then northwards across the Zierberg to the Darlington Dam area right up to the R400. The highest point in the park is 951 meters above sea level. The park encompasses 5 of South Africa's 7 biomes. These include forest, the Alexandria forest area in the Woody Cape, subtropical thicket in the original Addo section, Kaboga, Colchester and Inyati, then the grassland in the Zierberg section, as well as fynbos in the Zierberg and the Namakuru in the Darlington area. The subtropical thicket is the largest biome, covering 69% of the area, whereas the forest area is only 10% and the Namakuru only 7%. Fynbos and grassland each cover 5%. In these 5 biomes, 43 distinct land classes have been mapped. 29 of the 43 land classes have been identified as experiencing a high level of threat. The park currently covers approximately 179,000 hectares. It has now reached a size where the park ecosystem is now relatively intact and able to accommodate many ecological processes. From this point, it's only 500 meters to the summit. Once near the mountaintop, the gradient eases off, but the road still heads north for several kilometers. This is an excellent place to take a breather at the summit, with the last of the big climbs behind you. The views from the summit are amazing. To the north, a vast expanse of the Karoo stretch away into a distant haze of blues and greys, with the shimmering waters of the Darlington Dam clearly visible to the northwest. Turning a little further towards the west, there are lofty views of the green banks of the Sundays River Valley, whilst the views to the east present ridge upon ridge of mountains that you've just driven over. The trip is not over yet, as the descent still awaits, with no less than 11 hairpin bends. The gradients on the descent are not as severe as the ascent, but they are nonetheless steep and fairly dangerous. The first 3 hairpins follow each other in rapid succession. One of the golden rules for safe descending is to use the same gear ratios that you used for the ascent. In this instance, it would be 2nd and 3rd gear low range. On long and steep descents, it's important to use engine compression to slow your vehicle down rather than the overuse of the foot brake, which could result in overheating and possible brake failure. From this vantage point, you'll get a good view of the road snaking its way towards the bottom of the valley. South African national parks are managed as natural systems in which conservationists try as best as possible to mimic natural processes. Nowhere in a natural system would one find waterholes dispersed evenly across the landscape. Nature has a way of avoiding this at all costs to prevent the homogeneous use of vegetation, which ultimately will lead to the extinction or degrading of species. Hapur is a good example of what could potentially happen at waterholes if limitless water is provided. In this way, elephants are forced to not homogeneously use the landscape. In times when there are good rains, elephants will be found across the park when all the pans and dams have water. During the drier periods, elephants move back to the main water sources, thus protecting the Colchester thicket from being overbrowsed during dry periods. The waterholes in the Colchester section are purposefully limited in number as well as the quantity of water available. Stress is part of nature, and it's vital that everyone understands this. Be sure to watch part 11 of the Bedrogfontein 4x4, which deals with the middle section of the descent.